editor of the Lansing Journal. The Lansing Journal is Lansing's only newspaper, and we work hard to keep our diverse community informed and connected. Now, there are communities all across America that do not have a local newspaper, and the situation has been getting worse year after year. The Pew Research Center says that thousands of newspapers have stopped publishing in the last 2 decades. There are reasons for this decline. For one thing, we've seen changes in the ways people consume news. A printed newspaper is no longer the most popular format. A full 2/3 of readers, 66%, now access news digitally through websites, apps, emails, or social links. For some established newspapers who were entrenched in a system based in print and presses and paper, it's been difficult to pivot to digital, and many of them could not make the transition. Second, there have been changes in the business model. Printed newspapers depended on printed advertising revenue. As these advertisers have switched to digital systems for conducting their business, print advertising has become less relevant to them. So that revenue stream has thinned, and many print newspapers that do have an online presence were slow to transition to digital advertising, or they've done digital ads in a way that is hard on readers. As advertising revenue has decreased, some newspapers have cut costs by watering down their product, the news. They've eliminated reporters and editors, and maybe you've noticed how much thinner your printed newspaper is now. Third, there has been a change in the level of trust people have in media. Local media are trusted more than national media, but both are trending downward. At the Lansing Journal, we are keenly aware of all of this, and we consider ourselves fortunate to be part of a community that understands how important it is to have an independent source of information about businesses, about our schools, about our local government. It's largely because of your belief in us that we are still here, while other local newspapers have closed up shop. We are working hard to honor your investment in us and to withstand the forces that are toppling newspapers across the country. For one thing, we were pretty quick to pivot to digital when we had to in 2020. It was the pandemic that forced us to focus on digital. Our printer went out of business, and a lot of our regular print advertisers were struggling too. So we invested in our website, and we figured out digital advertising. That turned out to be a smart use of our limited resources that still serves us well today. Second, we have worked to diversify our revenue sources. Digital advertising is an important source of income for us, and we appreciate the local organizations who buy ads from us. That is a big help for this little business. We've also experimented with merchandise sales and fundraising events and income from Facebook and YouTube. But our largest chunk of revenue comes from regular people like you who give regular small amounts just because they appreciate having a local newspaper. So thank you for that. Third, and most important, we take your trust very seriously. We want you to know that Lansing Journal articles are written by real people, people who live right here in this community. We are not outsourcing or disinvesting in the news. Every story has a byline, so you know exactly where the information came from. When it's a news release we've received from someone else, from state sources or county sources, we tell you that. When it's sponsored content from an advertiser, we label it as such. We want you to trust us as real people, and we want you to be able to trust the information we are delivering. So we are working hard to stay in business in a time when so many local newspapers are closing, but it has been difficult. Frankly, my appeal letters don't always generate the income we need. And not all local businesses have time to think about advertising. And merch sales are sometimes more trouble than they're worth. About a year ago, I started reading about a new movement called Press Forward. This is a national collaboration of major funders, people who decided to pool their resources and focus on supporting local newspapers. Press Forward is the largest coordinated philanthropic effort to support local news. And last November, the Lansing Journal was invited to the launch meeting of Press Forward Chicago. Press Forward Chicago was the first of the local chapters of the national Press Forward movement, and there are reasons Chicago was first. For one thing, Chicago is awesome, but also the MacArthur Foundation is one of the national Press Forward founders, and MacArthur is located in Chicago. Plus, the Chicago Community Trust was already involved in helping local newsrooms, and so they were in a position to partner with MacArthur to launch the Press Forward Chicago chapter. For the Lansing Journal to be at that meeting was a little overwhelming, but also inspiring. It was eye-opening to see that there is such a large group of people who are committed, just as I am, to their own communities in their own ways. After I got home from the meeting, I sent a thank you email to a couple of the organizers and said, in part, "Thank you so much for making sure the Lansing Journal was included in tonight's meeting. It was good to be in the room. It was good to know we are not alone in this often lonely work of recording history, strengthening democracy, and building community." And it was so encouraging to meet people who want to fund this important work. After so many years of scrappiness and scraping by, I find myself almost overwhelmed at the idea that an entire coalition of funders is eager to invest. Thank you for inviting the Lansing Journal and for making introductions and giving us a place at the table. I am looking forward to continuing the journey together. And that journey has continued. In February of this year, Press Forward Chicago was the first local chapter to announce a request for proposals, inviting people to apply for grants. Of course, the Lansing Journal submitted an application. A lot of detailed information was required, and I worked hard to gather it and put it in the proper format. I had a grant writing expert look it over and give me advice about wording and making sure I was presenting our case clearly. I kept in contact with the Press Forward Chicago people I had met to make sure I was correctly understanding what they were looking for. Those efforts and those relationships did pay off. The Lansing Journal was awarded a grant from Press Forward Chicago in May of this year. In fact, Press Forward Chicago was the very first of all the local Press Forward chapters to award grants. Again, yay Chicago. And let me tell you what the grant is for. It's for hiring revenue-generating staff who will focus on bringing the money in so we can keep the news going out. We need development staff, grant writing staff, possibly a salesperson, and we need those people in place first before we can hire the additional reporting and editing staff we also need. To be honest, one of the outcomes of applying for this Press Forward Chicago grant was that the very process of completing the application helped me understand the Lansing Journal's needs. For example, I had to include a staffing plan and a budget with the application. And that really opened my eyes to how woefully underfunded the Lansing Journal has been and how precarious our position is. We have been getting by on about 1/5 of the income we really need and 1/5 of the staff we really need to serve our community well. It was a little bit depressing to realize that, to have those bleak numbers staring me in the face. Because you see, we have grown over the past 7 years, and I have been focusing on those growth numbers. We do have more subscribers than when we started. Our website is reaching more people than when we launched. We are publishing more articles and more original articles by our own journalists. And our income has grown too. We have more supporters, more monthly supporters, more advertiser. All of that helps. It's been exciting for me to see that growth. But I do think it sort of blinded me to the gap between what we have and what we really need. When Josh Bootsma, our managing editor, let me know he was leaving, that was a wake-up call for me. He and I have talked about this. Josh was willing to take a very low salary while we were starting out in the hope that support would keep growing and gradually we could raise salaries to a livable level. He was patient with me while I tried to figure out ways to generate income. but it wasn't enough, and it wasn't soon enough. Now when I think about trying to hire someone at the salary Josh accepted, I know that's impossible and unfair. People deserve a living wage, especially when they are working for the public good. So yes, on the one hand, the huge income gap is discouraging. On the other hand, having a plan in place also gives me confidence that achieving sustainability is possible for this little newspaper. The grant we received from Press Forward Chicago is an important first step. The grant is not enough to hire the full-time development staff we need, but we are using some of it to hire a consultant who will write grants for us and help us put together a grant strategy and calendar. By investing in this grant consultant first, I think we can see a return that will eventually allow us to hire a local full-time development person who can commit to our mission with us. And ultimately, the return on that investment will allow us to expand our journalism staff, which is really what we're all about. I'm sharing all of this with you for a few reasons, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen. One, I want to give you a renewed appreciation for that daily news email that lands in your inbox every morning. It's easy to take it for granted because it's really very consistent. Yes, occasionally we do have some kind of technical glitch, but for the most part, we show up at 5 a.m. every morning right there on your phone or computer with fresh, new local headlines every single day. We've been doing this nonstop since 2017, and it's easy to assume that it's automatic or common, but please know that this is a rare and special thing. You can be proud that your community has a local independent daily newspaper that anyone can sign up for. Two, I want to make you aware of the thought that goes into keeping the Lansing Journal in business. That too is not automatic. Honestly, I often feel like I do not know what I'm doing, but I am willing to keep trying, to keep learning, to keep asking questions, and keep asking for help. I think it's important for the Lansing Journal to stay in business, not for my own livelihood, but for the greater good and for the health of our community. This is important work. Three, I want to make sure you know that it is community support that has gotten us this far. Not only do your financial gifts help cover the costs of reporting the news, publishing it on our website, and delivering it every morning, but those financial gifts also helped us get the Press Forward Chicago grant. You see, funders like Press Forward Chicago want to know that their money is going to accomplish something. They don't want to support a newspaper that the community doesn't support. So when I can tell them that there are 800 people who have ever made contributions to the Lansing Journal, and that 250 of those 800 are giving every month, well, that reassures Press Forward Chicago that we are not looking for a handout. We as a community are doing what we can, and we're just asking for a little help from outside sources. You have shown these funders that we are a community worth investing in. 4, I want you to know that we are not alone. The Lansing Journal is not alone, and Lansing is not alone. We are part of a national movement. People across the country are seeing the need for local news, and they are willing to invest in the good work we are doing together. They are investing money, but also time and ideas and advice and help. We are not alone. You know, I keep this sign on the wall in my office as a reminder of the deep history that local news has in Lansing. This sign used to hang on the side of a building where printed newspapers were bundled and delivered to thousands of subscribers throughout the region. Teams of people reported news, sold advertising, called subscribers, and ran the presses so that our community could be informed and connected. In a sense, those days are over, but they have paved the way for the Lansing Journal to serve our community today. I also keep some recent print copies of the Lansing Journal in my office as a reminder of how much change we've seen in just the past few years. We used to publish a 24-page print edition every month and deliver it to most houses in Lansing as well as many of the businesses in town. Those days are over too, and I don't know if they're coming back. But the Lansing Journal is still here, still delivering local news to our local community. We still believe it's important for people to be informed so that they can be connected. So we are going to keep pressing forward with help from Press Forward Chicago and with continued help from our community. If you are already supporting this important work, thank you. We do not take your giving for granted. It is the lifeblood of the Lansing Journal. If you want to join this work or do more, we welcome your help. We need more help. We need 5 times as many supporters as we have right now. Giving just $10 a month or $120 a year is a small investment that can make a big difference. It's the difference between the Lansing Journal continuing to serve or shutting down, as so many other newspapers have. I'm hoping you will press forward with us. Thank you for letting me share my heart and share the need in this week's video. I will include a giving link for anyone who wants to press forward with us, and I'll include some links about the national crisis in local news for anyone who needs more information before making a giving decision. Thank you so much, my friends. I appreciate you, and I will see you next week.